Welcome to Monk's Temple. Come in. Find a comfortable place to sit, or lie down if you wish. Let your eyes soften. Let your breath find its own rhythm. There's no need to adjust anything, no need to fix anything. Just for these moments, allow yourself to simply be here. I'm going to share some quiet truths with you, truths that have been carried through centuries, from the heart of Buddhist wisdom, but offered now in the language of our own experience. This isn't about adding more knowledge to a busy mind. It's about remembering something your soul already knows but your thoughts have covered with noise. So, let's begin not with effort, but with ease. Your mind is a time traveler. It's a gift, but today, it might feel like a curse. It spends its hours replaying scenes from a past you cannot change, or previewing a future that hasn't been written. And in all that journeying, it misses the one place where life is actually happening. Right here, in this breath, in this sensation, in this quiet space between thoughts. Buddhism doesn't teach that the past and future are irrelevant. It teaches that they are thoughts, valuable, but not reality. Reality is this: the feeling of your body against the chair, the sound of your own breathing, the subtle play of light behind your closed eyelids. The present moment is the only place you have ever lived. Every memory you cherish happened in a present moment. Every hope you hold will happen in a present moment. Yet, we treat the now as a waiting room, a hallway we must hurry through to get to some other, better room called later. I remember sitting with an old teacher in a garden many years ago. I was young, my mind buzzing with plans and worries. I kept asking, what should I do next? How do I get to where I need to be? He listened patiently, then pointed to a cherry blossom tree heavy with blooms. Tell me, he said, is that tree waiting to become something else? Is it anxious to be more tree? Or is it, in this moment, perfectly and completely a cherry blossom tree? I looked. The tree was simply being. It was not lacking. It was not rushing. It was wholly present in its blossoming. Your life, he said softly, is not a journey to a moment. It is a series of moments, each one complete unto itself. When you miss this one in anticipation of the next, you miss your life. Overthinking is the sure sign you've left the present. You're not dealing with the reality of this moment, you're dealing with the mind's commentary about this moment. The commentary says, this isn't enough. You need to figure something out. You need to be somewhere else. But if you pause, right now, and drop your awareness into the physical sensation of your inhale and exhale, you'll notice something startling. In this exact slice of time, you are okay. Nothing catastrophic is occurring. The weight you feel is the weight of all the times you're not inhabiting. Mindfulness, in its purest Buddhist sense, isn't a complex ritual. It's the radical act of stripping away the extra layers. It's hearing a sound as just a sound, not as a reminder of something. It's feeling an emotion as a passing sensation in the body, not as a verdict on your life. It's letting the moment be exactly what it is, without demanding it be brighter, easier, or different. When you return, even for 10 seconds, 3 things happen immediately. First, the mental noise dims. Anxiety needs the fuel of future time to burn. In the timeless now, it has nothing to consume. Second, clarity emerges. Problems viewed from the calm of the present often shrink to their true, manageable size. Third, a deep, quiet peace becomes accessible. Not because your circumstances changed, but because you stopped arguing with what is. The mind's most persistent lie is that peace is conditional. It says, once you have this job, this relationship, this amount of money, then you can relax. But life doesn't work that way. The goalpost always moves. The condition for peace is always the next condition. True peace is unconditional. It's the peace of the cherry blossom tree, existing fully without a single thought about whether it's good enough. That peace is only ever found here, in the present, when the mind's commentary fades into the background. Your life is not elsewhere. It is here. In the ache in your shoulder, in the rhythm of your heart, in the space between these words. This moment, with all its simplicity or complexity, is the entire field of your existence. To miss it is to miss everything. So, as we continue, see if you can keep a part of your awareness anchored right here, in the feeling of the air, in the quiet of the room. You don't have to go looking for peace. You just have to stop leaving the place where it already lives. If these words are a refuge for you, a place of calm in the noise, consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. It's a simple way to make sure this space is always here when you need to return. No pressure, just an open invitation. We often get this backwards. We believe we need to feel trusting before we can act with trust. We wait for a surge of confidence, for all the fear to subside, for the path ahead to be fully lit. We treat trust like a weather pattern. Something that arrives when conditions are favorable. But from the perspective of Buddhist wisdom, trust is not a feeling you wait for. It is a choice you make, again and again, especially when you don't feel it. Trust is the discipline of leaning into reality instead of into fear. It's saying, I don't know how this will unfold, but I choose to move forward anyway, with openness. The Buddha's path wasn't walked with a detailed map. It was walked with a profound trust in the next step, and the wisdom to meet whatever that step revealed. Let me tell you a story from my own early days of practice. I was in a period of deep transition. I had left a career path that felt secure but empty. I had no concrete plan, just a whispering sense that I needed to change direction. The mind, of course, was in chaos. It presented me with a nightly slideshow of disaster, financial ruin, regret, judgment from others. I'd lie awake, my stomach tight, trying to think my way into safety. One evening, utterly exhausted, I went for a walk in a nearby forest. A storm had passed through, and the path was obscured by fallen branches and mud. I could barely see a few feet ahead. My first impulse was to turn back, it was too uncertain, too messy. But something in me was tired of turning back. I decided, just for that walk, to practice trust. Not a fluffy, blind optimism, but a simple decision. I will take the next visible step. Just one. And then I will look for the next one. I moved slowly. Step by step. Sometimes I'd slide in the mud. Sometimes I'd have to climb over a log. I had no idea how long the path was or where exactly it would come out. But a strange calm settled over me. I was no longer fighting the uncertainty of the path, I was in relationship with it. I was meeting each obstacle as it appeared, not pre-solving 100 that weren't there. When I finally emerged onto a familiar road, I wasn't just at the end of a trail. I had learned a lesson that has stayed with me: trust isn't knowing the way. It's knowing you can walk the way, one step at a time. Your mind will always lobby for certainty. It will present uncertainty as a threat, a void to be filled with worry. But Buddhism invites us to see uncertainty differently, as freedom. What is not fixed is still possible. What is not decided holds potential. When you demand certainty, you demand that life stop being alive, that the river freeze in place so you can study it. Trust allows you to get into the river and learn to swim with the current. This doesn't mean being reckless. It means being intelligent. It's grounded realism that says, I have survived every single one of my worst days so far. I have resources I forget about when I'm scared. I can handle not knowing. You practice trust when you send the email even though you're afraid of the reply. You practice trust when you take a day of rest even though your productivity mind screams it's wrong. You practice trust when you speak a vulnerable truth without knowing how it will be received. Think of a farmer planting seeds. She doesn't dig them up every day to check for roots. She trusts the process, the sun, the rain, the soil, the hidden intelligence of growth. She tends the field, but she does not force the sprout. Your life is that field. Trust is the patience to let the seasons do their work, while you do yours. It is the bridge between the fear that paralyzes and the freedom that moves. You don't wait for the bridge to feel sturdy. You step onto it, and with each step, it solidifies beneath you. There is a subtle, pervasive energy that drives so much of our mental suffering. It whispers, this must happen. And it must happen now. It turns preferences into life or death necessities. It makes a desire for a certain outcome feel like a need for oxygen. In Buddhism, this is called attachment, or clinging. And it is identified as a primary root of suffering. Attachment doesn't announce itself as a villain. It often dresses up as passion, as caring, as high standards. The difference is in the grip. Caring says, I would love for this to happen. Attachment says, this must happen, or I will be broken. Caring has an open hand. Attachment has a clenched fist. I learned this through a painful lesson involving a cherished pottery bowl. For years, I had a simple, beautiful bowl made by a dear friend. I used it every morning. It felt like a ritual, a touchstone. One day, while washing it, it slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor. My reaction was immediate and intense, a surge of panic, then a deep sadness that felt disproportionate to the event. For days, my mind replayed the moment, layered with stories. You're so careless. You've lost a piece of your friendship. You'll never find another like it. I was suffering, not because of the broken clay, but because of my attachment to the idea of the bowl, to the ritual it represented, to the stability I had assigned to it. The Buddha taught that we suffer not because things change, but because we expect them not to. We cling to people, to outcomes, to identities, to moments, as if they could be permanent footholds in a flowing river. The tighter we cling, the more we feel the current pulling against us. The urgency you feel, the I need to fix this, solve this, secure this now, is almost always the voice of attachment, not the voice of reality. Imagine holding a handful of sand. If you gently cup your hands, the sand rests there. If you clutch it tightly, squeezing with all your might, the sand forces its way through the gaps between your fingers. The very act of trying to hold on guarantees you will lose. Life is that handful of sand. The things we grip most tightly, a relationship, a career goal, a particular vision of our future, are often the things we strangle with our anxiety. We push them away with the pressure of our need. This creates the illusion that life is perpetually urgent. The mind, attached to a specific timeline, screams that you're behind. Attached to a specific result, it floods you with fear of failure. This urgency is a mirage. It is manufactured by the mind's refusal to accept the natural, unfolding pace of things. There is a vast difference between dedicated action and desperate forcing. One comes from a clear intention. The other comes from a terrified cling. The Buddhist teaching of non-attachment is often misunderstood as not caring, as becoming cold or detached. That's not it at all. Non-attachment is about caring deeply, but with an open hand. It's saying, I will pour my heart into this work, but I release my demand that it validates me. I will love this person fully, but I will not cling to them to complete me. It is freedom within engagement. When you loosen the grip of attachment, the artificial urgency dissolves. Time expands. Your peace is no longer held hostage by an outcome you cannot fully control. You begin to see that life often delivers exactly what you need, but your attachment to a specific form can blind you to the gift that's actually arriving. The broken bowl was a master teacher. It taught me to cherish the morning light, the taste of tea, the memory of a friend, all things that couldn't be broken, without needing one specific vessel to hold the experience. The moment I released the story of the loss, the peace of the morning ritual returned, different but no less whole. For most of our lives, we operate under a silent assumption: we are our thoughts. We believe that because a thought appears in our head, it must be important, true, or a command we must obey. We live as servants to a noisy committee, believing the committee is us. Buddhism offers a revolutionary correction: you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that hears them. The mind is a phenomenal tool for planning, creating, analyzing, remembering. But when left untrained and unquestioned, it ceases to be a tool and becomes a tyrant. Think of the mind not as the president of your inner country, but as the radio. It's constantly broadcasting. It plays channels of memory, stations of worry, talk shows of criticism, weather reports forecasting emotional storms. The problem isn't the radio. The problem is that we've glued ourselves to the speaker. We believe every broadcast is a live, breaking news alert about our survival that requires immediate action. We never reach over and change the station, or better yet, turn the volume down and remember we are in the room with the radio, not inside it. I witnessed this vividly while teaching a meditation class. A student, let's call her Anna, was struggling terribly. She'd close her eyes, and within seconds, her face would tense. Afterward, she confessed, "It's horrible in there. It's just one thought after another, telling me I'm doing it wrong, that I'm wasting time, that I have a million things to do." She was at war with her own mind, trying to fight the thoughts into silence. I asked her a simple question: who is it that knows the thoughts are so busy? She paused. "Well, I do." "Exactly," I said. "The thoughts are the weather. You are the sky that holds the weather. The storm isn't you. The knowing of the storm is you." This is the fundamental shift. From being in the thought to being aware of the thought. The Buddha famously compared the untrained mind to a wild animal, not to demean it, but to point out its untamed, reactive nature. It jumps at shadows. It runs from imaginary threats. It exhausts itself chasing its own tail. Training the mind doesn't mean killing the animal, it means building a relationship with it, so it can become a loyal companion instead of a chaotic master. Here's a practice, a simple one. For the next minute, don't try to stop your thoughts. Just imagine you are sitting on a park bench, watching traffic go by. Each car is a thought. Some are loud trucks, anxieties. Some are quiet sedans, memories. Some are brightly colored, fantasies. Your job is not to stop the traffic, not to get in and drive every car. Your job is just to sit on the bench and notice, there goes a worry truck. There's a planning car. There's a song on the radio. You are the bench sitter, the observer. The traffic flows on its own. This space of observation is where your freedom lives. It's the gap between the thought and your reaction to it. In that gap, you find your power to choose. When you stop identifying with every mental event, something beautiful happens. A thought like, "I'm a failure," arises. Instead of it being a truth that sinks you, it becomes a passing cloud in the sky of your awareness. You can note it, there's the failure story again. And because you didn't merge with it, it loses its power to define you. It just drifts by. This is not suppression. It's clarity. You're not believing the mind's dramas, you're watching them with gentle curiosity. The mind, used wisely, is your greatest ally in navigating the world. Used unconsciously, it is the source of your greatest prison. The bars of that prison are made of repetitive, unquestioned thoughts. The key is the simple, profound act of awareness. You are always more vast, more still, and more free than the mind's most convincing story. We often wear overthinking as a badge of responsibility. We tell ourselves, "I'm just thinking it through, I'm being thorough, I need to consider every angle." And while discernment is wise, there is a point where thinking ceases to be exploration and becomes a form of mental resistance. It is the mind's attempt to control reality through sheer mental force, to outthink the inherent uncertainty of life. Buddhism points out that suffering arises from our resistance to what is. Overthinking is resistance wearing the mask of problem solving. It is the mind saying, "I refuse to accept this situation as it is, so I will create 1,000 mental scenarios to try and find a way out of it." But you're not solving the real situation, you're wrestling with ghosts of possibility. Let me share a story about a man named Leo. Leo was offered a good job in another city. It was a solid opportunity, but it meant uprooting his family. For weeks, he was paralyzed. He made endless lists of pros and cons. He researched schools, housing costs, crime statistics. He projected his family's happiness in vivid detail for both staying and going. He lay awake imagining every possible failure, his kids unhappy, his wife resentful, himself failing in the new role. His thinking wasn't leading to a decision, it was preventing one. He was resisting the simple, uncomfortable truth: there was no guaranteed, risk-free path. His overthinking was a plea for a certainty that life does not offer. It was his mind thrashing against the walls of the unknown. I sat with him and asked, "What does your deepest intuition say, beneath all the noise?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "It feels like an adventure. A scary one, but an adventure." The resistance was the fear. The overthinking was the fear's attempt to build a fortress of logic to hide in. When he finally made a choice, to go, it wasn't because his thinking provided a perfect answer. It was because he grew weary of the resistance. He accepted the risk as part of the adventure. The mental storm calmed the moment he stopped fighting the fundamental uncertainty of the choice. Overthinking is like trying to smooth rippling water by pressing down on it with your palm. The more you press, the more turbulent it becomes. The solution is not more pressure, but to remove your hand and let the water settle on its own. The settling happens when you stop resisting the fact that the water is rippled. You accept the ripples. In that acceptance, clarity about what to do with the water often emerges naturally. Look at your own patterns. When you overthink, are you truly engaging with reality, or are you trying to mentally escape an uncomfortable present moment? The thoughts are almost always about a past you can't change or a future you can't control. They are a form of fleeing from the now, where the only real power exists. Resistance creates friction, and friction feels heavy, sticky, exhausting. Acceptance of the situation, of your feelings about it, of the not knowing, creates space. And in that space, movement becomes possible again. The next time you find yourself in a mental loop, ask gently, what am I resisting right now? Is it a feeling of helplessness? A fear of making the wrong choice? The reality of impermanence? See if you can soften around that resistance, even just a little. Don't try to think your way out of it. Just acknowledge it. This is resistance. Often, the act of naming it loosens its grip. The overthinking was just a symptom. The cure isn't better thoughts, but less resistance to life as it is, in this very moment. Our modern culture worships at the altar of effort. We believe that if we just think harder, plan more meticulously, and control more variables, we will achieve clarity. We confuse mental activity with insight. But from the heart of Buddhist practice comes a counterintuitive truth: clarity is not manufactured by the mind. It is revealed to a mind that has become still. Think of your awareness as a pond. When the wind of your thoughts is strong, the surface is choppy, turbulent. You look into it and see only broken, distorted reflections. You can't see the depths, you can't see the clear sky above. You might thrash around in the water, trying to smooth it by force, which only creates more waves. Clarity, in this state, is impossible. Now imagine the wind dies down. Gradually, the agitation settles. The pond becomes still. In that stillness, it becomes a perfect mirror. It reflects the sky, the trees, the stars with perfect accuracy. It reveals its own depths. The stillness didn't create the sky or the depths, it simply stopped obscuring them. We spend so much time thrashing in the water. We believe the answer to confusion is more thinking, more analyzing, more figuring out. But that's just stirring the pond more vigorously. The answer is to stop stirring. To be still. To let the sediment of anxiety, planning, and fear settle to the bottom. I learned this not in a grand meditation hall, but in an art studio. A friend is a potter. I watched her work at the wheel for hours. There's a critical moment after the clay is centered, a moment of pure stillness. Her hands hover, not touching the clay. The wheel spins, but she is utterly still. If you try to shape it while it's still wobbling, she told me, even slightly, the whole piece will be off. You have to wait for it to be perfectly, quietly centered. Then, and only then, can your hands guide it into form. Our minds are that clay. Our lives are the potential form. We try to shape our lives while our minds are wobbling with fear and thought, and we wonder why everything feels lopsided, unstable. The first creative act is not action, but the creation of inner stillness. From that centered quiet, wise action arises almost by itself. Meditation, in this light, is not a special spiritual activity. It is practice for life. It is the dedicated time we spend letting the pond settle, so we can learn what true clarity feels like. We sit, we breathe, we watch the waves of thought come and go without jumping into them. Slowly, we realize we are the pond, not the waves. This stillness then begins to seep into our daily life. We pause before reacting in an argument. We take a breath before answering a difficult email. We walk without mentally rehearsing the next meeting. In those pauses, the stillness speaks. It offers perspectives that frantic thinking never could. Control is born of fear, the fear of the unknown outcome. Stillness is born of trust, the trust that wisdom will emerge when the noise subsides. You don't need to know every step of the journey. You only need a clear, still mind to take the next step well. Stop trying to control the reflection in the water. Instead, tend to the stillness of the pond. Everything else will follow from that. We have been conditioned to expect growth to be dramatic, visible, and applauded. We look for the sudden breakthrough, the obvious milestone, the clear sign that we've made it. When we don't see it, we conclude that nothing is happening, that we are stuck. This impatience is one of the mind's greatest sources of suffering. Buddhist wisdom gently corrects this. The most important growth is invisible, silent, and happens deep beneath the surface of your awareness. It is the necessary preparation for any visible change. Consider a bamboo forest. Some species of bamboo, after being planted, show no visible growth above ground for years. All the while, underground, the plant is developing an immense, interconnected root system. It is gathering strength, establishing a foundation that will later allow it to shoot up dozens of feet in a single season. If a gardener dug it up every month to check for progress, they would see nothing and might conclude it was dead. But the work happening unseen is the most crucial work of all. Your life is like this. You are always in a state of becoming. Right now, as you listen, shifts are occurring in your understanding, in your heart, in your neural pathways. You may not feel them. You may look in the mirror and see the same person, listen to your thoughts and hear the same worries. But beneath that surface, the roots of your next stage of life are spreading. I think of a woman who came to our temple, burdened by a sense of stagnation. She felt her career was dead-ended, her spiritual practice dry. Nothing is growing, she said. I asked her to describe her last year. Reluctantly, she listed events. She'd started setting a gentle boundary with a demanding family member. She'd quietly stopped following social media accounts that made her feel insecure. She'd begun noticing the urge to criticize herself and, sometimes, letting it pass without adding to it. She'd felt a new pang of compassion when seeing someone struggle. To her, these were insignificant, non-events. To me, they were the unmistakable sound of deep, subterranean growth. She was building the root system for resilience, self-respect, and peace. The visible, bamboo shoot, of a new career or dramatic awakening hadn't broken ground yet, but the conditions for it were being meticulously prepared. Growth often feels uncomfortable before it feels inspiring. The softening of an old, hard belief feels like confusion. The release of a long-held resentment feels like emptiness. The birth of a new boundary feels like guilt. The ego interprets this discomfort as something going wrong. It wants the comfort of the familiar, even if the familiar is a prison. So it shouts, "See? Nothing's changing. You're still the same." But that discomfort is often the breaking of the seed coat. The seed must break for the plant to emerge. Breaking doesn't feel good, but it is necessary. Trust the phases of silence. Trust the periods where you feel you're just putting one foot in front of the other with no visible progress. These are not wasted times. They are incubation periods. The caterpillar in the chrysalis looks, from the outside, like it's doing nothing. Inside, it is being completely reorganized into a butterfly. Your most profound transformations will happen in these quiet, inward seasons. One day, you will face a situation that once would have triggered you, and you will find yourself responding with calm. You will realize a goal you once clung to has quietly lost its hold on you. You will understand something that confused you for years. It will feel sudden, but it won't be. It will be the harvest of all the unseen growth that came before. Stop digging up your seeds. Have faith in the dark, fertile soil of your own being. The growth is already in motion. Your only job is to provide a gentle, patient awareness, and to keep showing up for your life, moment by moment. The flower will appear in its own perfect time. Let me tell you a story about a bridge builder named Alara. She lived in a village divided by a wide, rushing river. The villagers on each side lived separate lives, full of suspicion and missed connection. Alara had a vision, a beautiful, sturdy bridge. But whenever she tried to build, the current was too strong. Pilings were swept away. Plans were ruined. She grew frustrated, then desperate. She started staying up all night, drawing stronger and stronger designs, calculating forces, trying to outthink the river. She became thin, her eyes haunted. The bridge, in her mind, was everything. Its absence meant failure, division, and her own inadequacy. One exhausted dawn, she collapsed on the riverbank. Defeated, she just lay there, listening to the water. For the first time, she wasn't listening to figure it out. She was just listening. She heard its power, but also its rhythm. She noticed how it slowed in certain eddies, how it sang over stones. She began to breathe with its sound. In, out. In, out. Her frantic mind began to settle into the rhythm of the river itself. In that stillness, a new knowing arose. It wasn't a detailed blueprint. It was a feeling, build with the river, not against it. Don't fight the current, use its nature. Instead of a rigid, straight bridge, she envisioned a series of smaller, flexible platforms connected to the natural rock formations in the river, allowing the water to flow freely through and around them. It was a bridge that would dance with the river, not dominate it. The bridge she built was not what she originally imagined. It was better. It was alive. It became a place where people would stop not just to cross, but to sit and watch the water, to talk, to connect. The bridge didn't just solve a problem, it created a new heart for the community. Your mind is Alara, trying to build a rigid bridge over the river of your life. Overthinking is those desperate, sleepless nights of calculation. The river is reality, powerful, flowing, uncontrollable. Your breath is the rhythm that connects you to it. When you stop fighting, when you listen and breathe with what is, clarity emerges not as a forced plan, but as a harmonious solution. You build your life with life, not against it. The bridge you're trying so hard to force into existence might be blocking a more beautiful, flowing connection that's waiting to be discovered in the space between your breaths. In a mountain town, there was a weaver named Kalen, renowned for intricate tapestries. His work was beautiful but always carried a subtle tension, a feeling of strain. He worked in a dim, cluttered studio, his brow permanently furrowed. He believed his skill came from his intense focus, from holding the vision of the final pattern in his mind with ironclad control, forcing every thread to obey. One season, a strange fatigue settled over him. His hands trembled. The threads kept knotting. The more he strained to control them, the worse it became. Despairing, he finally set the work aside and walked into the mountains. For days, he did nothing. He watched clouds. He listened to wind in the pines. His mind, deprived of its familiar task, slowly grew quiet. One afternoon, he sat by a spider's web glistening with dew. He watched as the spider worked, not with grim determination, but with a fluid, attentive grace. The spider didn't hold a mental blueprint. It responded to the anchor points, to the breeze, to the space. It was in a dialogue with its environment. The web was perfect, strong, and astonishingly beautiful, a part of the world, not an imposition upon it. Kalen returned to his studio, but he did not return to his old way. He cleaned the windows, letting light flood in. He took a deep breath and touched his threads not as a commander, but as a collaborator. He began to weave, but this time, he held the intention of the tapestry lightly. He paid close attention to the feel of the wool, the play of colors as they met, responding to what emerged on the loom as much as directing it. The tapestry that grew under his hands was unlike any he had made before. It felt alive, peaceful, and effortlessly complex. The strain was gone from the work, and for the first time, it was gone from his heart. We are all weavers. Our thoughts, actions, and days are the threads. We believe we must control every intersection, force the pattern we've decided upon. This is the mindset of overthinking and attachment. But there is a deeper intelligence available. The intelligence of responsive awareness, of weaving with the threads of circumstance, of letting the pattern emerge from a dialogue between your intention and reality. When you release the need for total mental control, your life becomes less like a strained technical project and more like a living tapestry, woven with grace and inherent wisdom. Marlowe was a passionate but impatient gardener. He wanted a paradise, now. He would plant seeds and then hover, watering too much, fertilizing too eagerly. At the first sign of a weed, he'd pounce, yanking it out, often disturbing the tender roots of his desired plants. He fought pests with harsh sprays. His garden was a battlefield, and he was perpetually exhausted, watching for the next threat. His garden, despite his constant effort, struggled. Plants were wilted from overwatering or scorched by fertilizer. The soil was hard and lifeless. One day, an elderly neighbor, whose garden was a lush, buzzing haven of life, visited. She didn't offer advice. She just said, "Come sit in mine tomorrow morning." Just sit. Marlowe went, reluctantly. He sat on a stone bench as the sun rose. He saw bees moving from flower to flower. He saw birds picking insects off leaves. He saw how some plants leaned on others, how dead leaves mulched the soil. He noticed the quiet. There was no strain here, only a complex, self-sustaining rhythm. The old woman finally spoke. "I don't grow the garden. I tend the conditions. The growing is its own magic." Marlowe went home and put his tools away for a week. He just observed. He saw that the weeds included plants that brought bees. He saw that a few pests attracted ladybugs that ate them. He began to mimic the natural rhythm. He watered less, but more deeply. He added compost, not chemicals. He learned to identify which weeds to pull and which to leave. He stopped fighting the ecosystem and started collaborating with it. Within a season, his garden transformed. It was not the manicured perfection he'd originally envisioned. It was wilder, more diverse, more resilient, and infinitely more beautiful. It thrived with less effort because he was no longer working against life's natural intelligence. Your mind is Marlowe the impatient gardener. Your life is the garden. Overthinking, controlling, and forcing are the overwatering, the harsh sprays, the constant pulling. They exhaust you and disrupt the natural, intelligent growth process. Peace and breakthrough come when you shift from being a frantic controller to a wise tender of conditions. You tend to your inner climate, your stillness, your awareness, your compassion. You pull the weeds of toxic thoughts, but you don't declare war on every passing emotion. You trust that when you create the right inner conditions, sunlight of awareness, water of acceptance, soil of patience, growth will happen on its own, in its own way, more wonderfully than you could have forced. In a city of constant noise, there was a piano tuner named Silas. His work was one of profound silence and listening. People would bring him pianos that sounded off, jangly, distressing to play. They'd say, "Fix it. Make it sound right." They expected him to bang on keys, to force adjustments. But Silas's process was different. He would enter a room with a piano and first just sit. He'd let the ambient sound settle. Then he'd strike a single tuning fork, a pure, clear note. He wouldn't immediately start turning pins. He would listen. He'd listen to the note of the fork, and then he'd gently press a piano key, listening not just to the pitch, but to the waves between the two sounds, the beats of dissonance. His work was one of exquisite alignment. He didn't force the piano string to be something. He adjusted it until its vibration resonated in harmony with the true note. When alignment was achieved, the beats would disappear, leaving only a unified, clear tone that seemed to expand in the air. He once said, "Every piano already contains perfect music. It's hidden under layers of being out of tune with itself. My job isn't to add music. It's to subtract the interference." Your mind, when overthinking, is that out-of-tune piano. The thoughts are jangling, discordant notes creating beats of anxiety and confusion. You try to fix it by playing it louder, thinking harder, which only increases the dissonance. The tuning fork is the present moment, a clear, unwavering truth, like the breath, like a sensory anchor. The practice of mindfulness is the act of listening. You listen to the clear note of the now, and you gently adjust your attention away from the thoughts that create dissonance with it. You don't fight the thoughts. You simply return, again and again, to the tuning fork. Clarity and peace are not new notes you need to create. They are the fundamental, harmonious tone of your being, revealed when you subtract the interference of frantic, misaligned thinking. Your work is not to create peace, but to tune yourself back into the peace that is already there, waiting beneath the noise. Strike the tuning fork of this breath. And listen. Far on a stormy coast, there was a lighthouse keeper named Owen. His duty was simple: keep the great light burning through the night to guide ships. For years, he was exemplary. But as he aged, a subtle anxiety took root. What if the lens fogged? What if the mechanism failed at a critical moment? What if a captain misread the signal? He began to overthink. He would clean the already spotless lens for hours. He'd invent complex backup systems that often tangled and caused more problems. He'd stand on the gallery, peering into the gale, trying to see the ships he was worried about, instead of tending the light. He grew weary, and the light, though still functional, seemed to lose some of its steady, reassuring power. One night, a storm of legendary fury hit. Owen's worst fears seemed realized. The wind screamed, the waves shook the very rock. His new backup system failed spectacularly. In the chaos, he did the only thing left: he returned to the simple, timeless core of his duty. He manually lit the primary lamp. He wiped the lens once, carefully. And then, because there was nothing else to do, he sat in the keeper's chair, his hand on the mechanism, his eyes closed. He focused on the rhythm of the light: turn, glow, turn, glow. He became the rhythm. He wasn't fighting the storm or trying to see through it. He was simply being the unwavering point of light in the midst of it. At dawn, the storm cleared. Exhausted but calm, Owen saw a ship safely anchored in the lee of the island. Later, the captain came to thank him. "That light," the captain said, his voice full of emotion. "In the worst of it, when we couldn't see anything, there it was. Not flickering, not searching. Just steady. It wasn't just a light. It was a promise. We steered toward that promise, and it saved us." Owen understood. He had spent years trying to control the storms, the ships, the sea. His real power was not in control, but in unwavering presence. The light was enough. His job was not to eliminate the storm, but to be the steady light within it. You are the lighthouse keeper. The storms are the circumstances of your life, the uncertainties, the losses, the changes. Overthinking is you trying to control the storm, clean imaginary fog, invent failing backup plans for every scenario. It exhausts you and dims your light. Your light is your awareness, your presence, your capacity to return to the breath, to the now. You don't need to stop the storm. You can't. You need to trust your light. Tend to it with simple, consistent practice. Keep it clean with moments of stillness. And then, let it shine. It is enough. For yourself, and for others lost in their own storms, your steady presence becomes a promise that calm exists, that direction is possible, that they are not alone. Be the lighthouse, not the weather controller. In an age of exploration, a renowned mapmaker named Thorne was commissioned to chart a vast, unknown forest. He was a man of intellect and precision. He entered the forest with his instruments, determined to impose order on the wilderness. He plotted points, drew straight lines of travel, labeled sections, dangerous or safe. But the forest resisted. Trails he mapped would be blocked by a fallen tree the next day. Safe zones held hidden swamps. His maps became obsolete faster than he could draw them. Frustration turned to obsession. He filled volumes with detailed, contradictory maps. The more he tried to pin the forest down, the more chaotic and fearful his work became. He was lost in his own representations. One day, his instruments broke in a fall. Stranded, with only a blank parchment, he gave up. He simply started walking, not to chart, but to survive. He noticed things he'd missed before, the way moss grew thicker on the north side of trees, the subtle paths made by animals, the sound of water guiding him to streams. He began to draw not a definitive map, but a guide to navigation. He sketched landmarks that were unlikely to change, a peculiar twisted oak, a rock formation like a sleeping giant. He noted patterns, deer paths lead to water. Where the ferns are thick, the ground is soft. This map was not a claim of control over the forest. It was a record of a relationship with the forest. It was flexible, intuitive, and far more useful. When he emerged, he presented his new kind of map. Explorers who used it didn't feel they had a rigid plan, they felt they had a wise companion. They learned to read the land itself, using Thorne's notes as a starting point for their own dialogue with the terrain. You are Thorne. The unknown forest is your future, your life path. Overthinking is the attempt to create a rigid, detailed map, a fixed plan that life must follow. When life inevitably changes, the tree falls, the swamp appears, the mind panics, trying to draw new maps frantically. This leads to exhaustion and feeling lost. Wisdom offers a different approach: create a navigational guide, not a fixed map. Your values, your awareness, your breath, these are your constant landmarks. When I feel anxious, I return to my breath. When I am confused, I pause and observe. My North Star is compassion. This internal guide allows you to navigate any terrain, because it teaches you how to read the present moment itself. Stop trying to map the future. Learn the art of navigation. The path reveals itself to the walker who knows how to see. A young potter, Arya, was talented but plagued by perfectionism. She would work for days on a vase, only to shatter it at the wheel at the slightest imperfection, a tiny air bubble, a subtle asymmetry. Her studio floor was littered with shards of almost beautiful things. She believed true beauty was flawless, and her mind was a harsh critic, narrating every supposed failure. One day, an earthquake struck the region. It was mild, but in her studio, a shelf collapsed. A finished piece she was secretly proud of, a large, glazed urn, fell and cracked deeply down one side. She was devastated. This was not a flaw at the wheel, this was a ruin. Heartbroken, she couldn't bring herself to discard it. She placed it on a shelf, a monument to loss. Weeks later, morning light streamed through the window, hitting the cracked urn. Arya stopped. The crack, filled with shadow, created a striking, elegant line of darkness against the vibrant glaze. It didn't look broken, it looked accented. It gave the piece character, a story, a unique presence the flawless version never had. In that moment, her understanding of beauty shattered and reassembled itself. She saw that the crack wasn't a subtraction from perfection, it was an addition of uniqueness, of history, of resilience. She began a new series she called Kintsugi of the Soul, not using gold lacquer, but simply highlighting the natural cracks and imperfections in her work. She stopped fighting the clay's nature. If an air bubble burst, she'd incorporate the texture. If the form warped slightly in the kiln, she'd celebrate its organic shape. Her work became deeply sought after, not in spite of its imperfections, but because of them. They felt alive, human, true. Your mind is Arya the perfectionist, wanting to shatter every moment, every effort, that isn't flawless according to its rigid standards. Overthinking is the search for the invisible air bubble, the criticism of the subtle asymmetry. The cracks, the failures, the unexpected changes, the losses, are seen as ruins. But what if your life is not meant to be a flawless, mass-produced vase? What if it's meant to be a unique vessel, its beauty defined by its cracks, healed and integrated? The broken bowl, the failed plan, the heartache, these are not evidence of a flawed life. They are the marks that make your life distinctly, beautifully yours. The Buddhist teaching of impermanence isn't a tragedy, it's an invitation to see beauty in the cycle of forming, cracking, and reforming. Embrace the cracks. They are where your light gets in, and where your unique character shines out. So here we are. We've traveled through these landscapes of understanding together. We've sat by the pond, tended the garden, tuned the piano, kept the light. These aren't just stories. They are mirrors, reflecting back the timeless wisdom of Buddhism in the language of our human experience. Remember, you are the sky, not the weather. Your thoughts are passing events in the vast space of your awareness. You are the lighthouse keeper, not the storm. Your steady presence is your power. You are the navigator, not the mapmaker. Learn to read the terrain of the present moment. You are the gardener who tends conditions, not the controller who forces growth. Create inner stillness and trust the natural intelligence of life. You are the weaver in dialogue with the threads, not the tyrant imposing a pattern. Let your life emerge from a collaboration between your intention and reality. You are the potter embracing the crack, not shattering the vase. Your imperfections are part of your unique beauty. You are the one who practices trust, step by step, bridge by bridge. You don't need to see the whole path to walk it wisely. Your breakthrough is not a distant event on a timeline. It is the quiet, cumulative effect of all the moments you choose awareness over fear, stillness over chaos, acceptance over resistance. It is already in motion. Right now. In the choice to listen to this breath instead of that worry. In the decision to soften your shoulders when you notice they're tense. In the glance out the window that truly sees the sky. You are not meant to control life. You are meant to live it, fully, consciously, compassionately. And you have everything you need to begin, right here, in this breath. So, from all of us here at Monk's Temple, thank you for sharing this time of peace and remembering. Walk gently. Walk mindfully. And know that you can always return here, to this space of quiet truth, whenever you need. May you be well. May you be peaceful. May you be free.